No matter how tough a battle it was definitely a battlefield where you had the rednecks and those that wanted to see a change in social adjustments being made in the United States. And so no matter how you look at it, it's still going on. It's a tough battle, except what's admirable of those that are on our side is now that they're not afraid to speak up. Before, there seemed to be some kind of a reluctance to want to state your views as to how people should live socially. And what I can say about that volume is that somebody's turning that one up, which is very, very good, and I'm very happy about it. Just a very small example, but it's illustrative of what's happening all over the United States. Where we did have a victory, although regardless of the nature of this victory, it was a victory. Where we did have a victory was once in St. Louis, pardon me, Louisville, I'm sorry. Louisville, Kentucky, which was outside of the base that we did most of our training in. A bunch of us were, of the black soldiers were given passes to go to a baseball game on a Sunday in downtown Louisville. And that was quite an honor, and we were going to make the most of it, regardless of the makings of this particular movement by the opposition. However, when we got ourselves together, all dressed up, going to be able to see a big league ball game, you might say, big league where all the players were black. Everybody that worked there was a black person. However, there were people in the crowds that said, no, we don't even want that to happen. We don't want any victory to occur for the benefit of our opposition. And so when I and about two other cadets went there to see the ball game on Sunday, all set for a wonderful afternoon, and we had seats right behind home plate, we were refused. And not only refused, but we were ejected from that park, and we had to accept that. So it's going to be a long while before the two sides start to compromise and make some justifiable concession. So it's not over. It wasn't over then. We knew it was going to be a tough battle, but it would pop up in the most surprising places. I'm sure if you surveyed the cadets that went through there, they would have stories similar to my Louisville baseball game.
I find myself talking about incidents that we have to experience to get from starting out in a position in a private or whatever your rank might be, to that of a sergeant or a person of higher rank. But one evening on Diamond Field, Kentucky, they were having a movie called For Whom the Bell is Tolled. And it was about China. It was well recognized as a very excellent film. Now, when we were stationed in Diamond Field, it was actually surrounded by Fort Knox. So wherever you went outside of Diamond Field, you had Fort Knox. Leroy talked about a number of people who had been sent from Europe to the United States for their part as Italian or German prisoners of war. They could sit where they wanted to sit in the motion picture house. We could not. could sit only on one location, regardless. And one night we found ourselves looking at this film, and all of a sudden the film stopped. And that was because some black soldiers who had just returned from Italy were upset to find that they had been fighting for 2 years against the Germans and the Italians. And they found that the Germans and the Italians could do what they wanted even though they were prisoners of war. The lights were turned on, and they said all the personnel from Garment Field would report to their base. And so the lights were on, we had to get up and go out. And what greeted us was the half-tracks with 50 caliber machine guns, MPs with M16 rifles, and others that were putting us in a position where we only had one way to go, and that was to fight or to go to Garment Field. And there was a black officer that said to us, fellas, this is no way to win a war or a battle of your rights. Go back to Garment Field and do your best. That was what was elected, but it told us something that we otherwise would not know how to handle it. That you would fight to the death and win nothing, or to show that you could survive and that you could do in the air or on the ground as good a job as anyone else that was at that base or in Fort Knox. So when you think about what you're trying to do is protect and help win the war against the type of thing that was going on that was produced by Hitler and others. Or you could just throw in the towel. And that was a challenge for every one of us. And still is a challenge, but the point I want to make is that we have to either deny that America was our country, or that it is our country and we're going to fight for it just like everyone else. So we did the best that we knew how, and I think we won that part of the war.
Well, I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and when I was 18 years old, I was on my way to pilot training at Tuskegee, as I said. But I went up to Fort Lewis, Washington, to be sworn into the Army Air Corps, and we had Italian prisoners up there who could go in the main BX, which we could not do. Also, on my way down to Tuskegee, we stopped off in Athens, Georgia. I got off the train, stretched my legs, and I was going to get a drink. And there was a drinking fountain right there by the train. I reached down to get some water, and there was a lady behind the glass, and I think she went into hysterics. It turned out I was drinking in the white drinking fountain. So I got back on the train, and on my way down to Tuskegee, the dining car, they would draw a curtain over the back 2 tables. That was for blacks, and the rest of the dining car was for whites. Also, after I graduated and I was stationed at Lockbourne Air Force Base, we used to fly the P-47, and in order to get our flying time in, sometimes the aircraft, they didn't have enough for us to get our time in. We would fly in the C-47. Well, the white officers who were going to Ohio State University would come out to Lockbourne to get their time in the C-47. And we would also fly with them. And I was on a mission one day with a white captain, and we had 19 white enlisted men that were going to take down to Maxwell Air Force Base. Well, I was flying co-pilot with him, and the weather was bad, so we had to stop off in Florida at this civilian airport to refuel the aircraft. Well, I think I had about $25, and I think he had about $50. So since we were officers, we said, send the troops up and get them something to eat at the terminal while we serviced the aircraft. Well, after we finished servicing the aircraft, we went up to eat, and they wouldn't serve me. So I had to go around at the back of the terminal to get something to eat, and then on down to Maxwell Air Force Base. And back in those days, the black squadron in the Army Air Corps was a Squadron F. Well, I couldn't go in the White Officers Club, so I went over to Squadron F where the enlisted men were. And needless to say, being a black officer, they treated me very royally. So I had a thorough experience at that point before the armed forces were integrated.